We all know about India's love for SUVs, and because of that, we have one spawning in almost every segment. And the latest to join the fray is this, the all-new Maruti Suzuki Fronx. Now, if you've read our stories before, or if you've seen the previous walk around of the Maruti Suzuki Fronx, you'll know that this car is based on the hugely popular Baleno. Now the question to ask here is whether Maruti have done enough to differentiate the Fronx, or is this just a jacked up Baleno? Only one way to find out, and that's by driving it, and that's what we're doing here in Goa. But before we go ahead, let me tell you that at the end of the video, we'll be answering a lot of your questions regarding the new Maruti Fronx, and also make sure you like, share and subscribe to the CarWale channel, because it's your likes and comments and subscriptions that keep us going. Now talking about design, of course the Fronx is not an all-out SUV and it's more of a crossover. But Maruti have left no stone unturned to give it a proper SUV treatment. The front end treatment is similar to the much bigger Grand Vitara. So you get the glossy next wave grille, which is flanked by LED DRLs on both sides instead of the headlights. You also get a thick chrome band that runs across the grille and connects the DRLs. The bottom of the front bumper gets the mandatory bash plate too. On the sides, the silhouette is more coupe-ish than boxy. You also get plastic cladding that runs across the length of the car. The 16-inch alloy wheels get a pretty neat design as well. At the rear, the tail lights are connected via the LED strip. The bash plate is present at the rear too, and a design inspiration that we see that has been picked up from the Grand Vitara are these notches with the integrated reflectors. Overall, we love how the Fronx looks completely different from a Baleno, and Maruti Suzuki have done a good job giving the car its own identity. Now let's get to the interiors. Now the moment you step inside the Fronx, what you notice that it immediately lacks is that sense of space, and let me tell you why. First up, the materials used inside, they're all of dark shades. So you really get that dark, gloomy feeling inside. And then of course it's the packaging. As compared to the Baleno, everything feels a little more compact than it actually should. So that's one thing. Getting to the dashboard and the quality of materials, the dashboard is pretty similar to the Baleno, but they've made a few changes. So you get this fake aluminum finish, you get a matte finish, you get this fake leather finish, and then of course you have this nice glossy piano black finish in the center. Quality of buttons, the feel, it's pretty tactile. The buttons feel, they have a pretty tactile feel to it, feels well made. Overall, the finish is quite impressive. Now getting to the seats are comfortable. City commute shouldn't be a problem at all, but one thing that I did notice is these side bolsters, they're a little too soft and they don't really hold you in place and just move around. So over long distances, the soft seat might be a problem, but we'll find that out later. So front seat, driving position, pretty easy. You should be able to find your position very easily. You've got the tilt and height adjustable steering. No powered seats, but it's adjustable manually. Now what we can do is, let's take a look at the rear seat. Now getting to the rear bench, as you can see, there's plenty of leg room here, and leg room shouldn't be an issue at all. The front seat is set according to my driving position. I'm 5'9", so this is pretty good leg room. Seating 3 people abreast, again, should be quite similar to the Baleno. Not very spacious, but not too bad either. Now the rear seating, it's quite high. So you can, the passenger seat and the rear bench can see quite clearly outside, which helps during long trips. However, what could have been better is the under thigh support. As you can see, it's a little lacking, and over long distances that could get a little tiring. Now, what you also get at the rear is a rear AC vent, two USB chargers, and that takes care of the practical bit. And what do you think about the rear of the new Suzuki Fronx? Let us know in the comments. Now let's take a look at the boot space of the Maruti Suzuki Fronx. Put my favorite bag in. All right. So the Maruti Suzuki Fronx, it gets a boot space of 308 liters. Now compare this with the Maruti Suzuki Baleno and you have 318 liters. Well, that's 10 liters down on the Baleno and we have no reason why. Maruti says it's down to the packaging and nothing else. So it's 10 liters down on the Baleno, but 308 liters, well, it should be decent for your average weekend trip. The Fronx comes across as pretty loaded when it comes to features. First up is the 9-inch infotainment system, which is the same as what you see in the Baleno, and that is not a bad thing at all. It's got crisp graphics, is smooth to operate and easy to connect via Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. Aiding it further is the Alchemy audio system. Apart from that, you get a wireless phone charger, head-up display, 360 view camera and more. However, what we think is a big miss, like in the Baleno, is the absence of a sunroof and ventilated seats. On the safety front, you get 6 airbags, hill hold assist and ABS along with ESP. The big elephant in the room, of course, is that Maruti has not announced any crash test ratings for the Fronx. Competition like the Tata Nexon and the Mahindra XUV 300 have already been tested and performed well. Maruti Suzuki has worked hard on the hard-tech platform using high and ultra-high tensile steel for a stronger body structure. However, a comparative score would validate the hard-tech platform's focus towards safety and reassure buyers even more. Now let's talk about the engine and gearbox. So the Fronx gets 2 engine options to choose from. You have the 1.2 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine that you also see in the Baleno, and it's the other engine that we're more interested in and the one that we're driving. It's the 1 liter Boosterjet engine, which is a 3-cylinder unit and it's turbocharged. It's the same engine that you also saw in the Baleno RS, which is now discontinued. So the engine makes 99 bhp and 147.6 Newton meters of torque. Gearbox, again Maruti has surprised us by offering a 6-speed automatic torque converter with the engine, and you also get the choice of a 5-speed manual. We have always believed that the Boosterjet engine is one of the best from Maruti Suzuki's stables, and it should be available in more Maruti Suzuki models. On startup, the engine feels refined and it's hard to tell that there's a 3-cylinder engine under the hood. Acceleration is crisp and one will be surprised how quickly the engine revs and hits the limiter. But what is most impressive is the mid-range. All that 147.6 Newton meters of torque is available from 2000 RPM, and that gives the Fronx excellent in-gear acceleration. Overtaking long trucks or slow-moving traffic is no effort at all, be it in the city or on the highway, as the Fronx gets up to 3-digit speeds very quickly. And it's not just quick, but fuel efficient as well. Maruti claims a fuel efficiency of 20 kilometers per litre, which sounds great, but something we will verify soon. Overall, we're just glad that Maruti decided not only to bring back the Boosterjet engine, but localize it as well, which only means more fun Maruti cars in the future. Talking about the ride and handling, Maruti Suzuki has outdone itself. The Fronx, being a crossover, gets about 20 mm more ground clearance than the Baleno. Maruti Suzuki has achieved this with the new 16-inch wheels and altered spring rates. Ride quality in the Fronx is so good that it puts some proper SUVs to shame. The suspension feels tightly sprung on good roads, but the moment you go through a bad patch, it absorbs the bumps extremely well. What is even more impressive is how quiet the suspension is even while tackling some really bumpy sections. The ride quality aside, even the handling is pretty good. The steering has some weight to it and the Fronx feels pretty nimble on its feet. It's chuckable in the tight sections and feels nice and stable on the long sweeping corners, which makes it ideal for long distance travel too. Overall, Maruti Suzuki have struck an excellent balance of ride and handling with the Fronx, and we love it. Now coming to the answer to the important question, have Maruti done enough? Indeed they have. The Fronx looks fantastic, and that it looks like a smaller version of the Grand Vitara only helps its case further. What we also applaud Maruti for is bringing that brilliant 1-litre Boosterjet engine and also adding an automatic gearbox to it. Even on the features front, the Fronx is pretty loaded, barring of course the ventilated seats and the sunroof, which we think should have been added. Now, the only other place where we think the Fronx is lacking is the feeling of outright space in the cabin. That could have been much better. Pricing. Now, we expect the Fronx to be priced between 10 to 14 lakhs depending on the variant. What do you think of the Fronx? Do let us know in the comments. But now, let's get to those questions that you all had about the Maruti Suzuki Fronx. Alright, now coming to the questions, the most popular question is about performance, and what we're asked is what is the difference in performance between the 1.2 litre engine and the 1 litre turbo on the city and the highway. Now, thanks to the Boosterjet engine, you get additional torque. So it's 113 Nm versus 147 Nm, which is a huge difference. So almost immediately you can feel the difference in performance, be it on the city or on the highway. Overtakes are a lot easier. You need to shift gears a lot less in the city. And of course, when you're in the mood for having fun, all that performance really comes in handy. So the difference in performance is pretty big. And if you want the extra performance, the Boosterjet engine makes a lot of sense. So the next question we have is about driving feel. So just like the Baleno, which was an absolute hoot to drive, the Fronx is again a fun to drive car. The steering feels great. It's got a decent level of feedback. It's not too light. It's not too heavy. It's quite neutral. It's very chuckable. It changes direction very quickly. So when you do want to have a little fun with the Fronx on the twisties, I think the car is more than up for it. The next question that we have is about low gear performance. I'm guessing we're being asked about the turbo lag, if any. Now, the Fronx's 1 litre Boosterjet engine makes 147.5 Nm of torque as low as 2000 RPM. So turbo lag is almost minimal. So low gear performance is pretty good, and even driving in traffic conditions or on hilly areas shouldn't be a problem at all. So the next question we have is about rear seat space and boot space. So as you can see, we have enough legroom here. The seat is set according to my height. Legroom is not an issue at all. Seating 3 people abreast, well, it's not the most spacious, and seating 3 people will be a little cozy affair. But apart from that, I think it's almost as comfortable as the Baleno. We've also been asked about headroom for 6 feet people. Now, considering the Baleno has a sloping roofline, headroom is pretty decent, and as you can see, I'm 5'9", and there's still plenty of space left for the roof. So 6 feet people shouldn't have much of a problem either. The next question is whether a 6-speed manual transmission would have been better instead of the 5-speed one in the Boosterjet. Well, 6 speeds is always going to be better, but what Maruti have managed to do is offer some very good gear ratios that offers a good balance of city and highway driving. So we think 5-speed works well, but of course a 6-speed would have made it even better. Another very good question that we got was, does the battery placed below the front left seat hamper comfort and space of the passenger? Now, since this is the smart hybrid variant, you get a lithium-ion battery that's placed below the co-passenger seat. So it does have a bit of an obstruction, but then there's place to keep your feet over it. So it doesn't really affect comfort or convenience that much.